Hello, everybody. I'm just kidding. What's up, guys? It's Anonymous Autumn here, bringing you a Battlefield 3 video. Finally got some post-patch footage that isn't, terrible, and actually shows some decent gameplay, I think, in my mind. I die a lot, but I also kill many things. But I don't really want to talk about the gameplay. I know I say that a lot, but just saying what's happening on a screen doesn't interest me that much. I mean, there's certain times when it it does sort of need some explanation, like the whole comeback video that I did. That probably was well suited for the whole explaining what's going on. But no. Today I want to talk about the patch. Yes, the elusive and long-awaited miracle patch to Battlefield 3. Now, I'm not here to tell you what the patch changed. I'm not here to give you any sort of God mode setups that allow you to beat everybody into smithereens. I'm not here to do that. No, what I want to do is sort of give my thoughts and my opinions on the patch and how it's changed the whole dynamic of Battlefield in different ways. Positive, negative, it depends on how you look at it. But so there's three things that three major changes that they made to the game, in my opinion, that really altered the way Battlefield plays. And first of all, suppression. Suppression has definitely gotten a big buff. They've changed the gun mechanics and how they operate and how they work with certain attachments, and they've also changed vehicles and certain how do you say this, certain way, how they play, like the damage they do, how much they take, etc. So the first thing, suppression. Oh boy, what a doozy. From the get-go, the whole idea of suppression, it sounds great on paper, and I was originally, when I first heard about the whole mechanic, I was like, wow, that's actually pretty cool. It's finally something to encourage people to keep their heads down. And on patch, I was like, yeah, it's not quite as good as I thought it would be. It's all right, but I'm not really too impressed with it. And the reason I wasn't a big fan of suppression in the first place is because essentially what it does is it gives whoever fires first the distinct advantage over being able to defeat whoever is being fired upon. Now, normally this seems pretty normal, but my problem with it is it stems from the fact that the player who's shooting at the guy doesn't matter what skill he is, he's got the huge advantage in this firefight. Why? Because he started firing rounds at the enemy, and now his accuracy is down, his recoil is up, and generally his ability to retaliate in any form is almost completely destroyed, as long as the attacking party has put enough rounds downrange. To me, it feels sort of like it gives newer, I don't want to say newer, but less skilled players the ability to defeat higher skilled players on a much more on a more regular basis. And it's okay to give the newbies some tools to actually have a chance, but for the most part, I'm all for having higher skilled players defeat lower skilled players, because that's just how it is. That's how it works. People who are better at a game should beat those who are inferior in terms of skill. So that's kind of where the problem stems with me. Now, with the patch, the amount of suppression that you receive, that you receive from a person shooting at you, has been, what's the word? It's sort of been extremed. That's not really a really good word for it, but it's been taken to the extreme almost. One round can be fired at you and you're really suppressed. Fire 2 or 3 and you're almost completely suppressed, and your ability to return fire is almost completely non-existent, simply because your recoil is increased a lot, and your accuracy, it might as well not even fire back, because if only to suppress them, I guess. That's the reason why I fire back when I'm getting suppressed, so I can suppress them. but it just ends up being a whole deal of shenanigans. So this whole new patch, it gives those people who shoot at whoever first an even more distinct advantage. And it doesn't matter how skilled you are, you know, you can't really recover from that amount of suppression unless you get lucky. And that's another thing that I have problem with games. You know, luck is a big part of it, but I feel skill should beat out luck every single time. So that's just one of my personal philosophies, but that is neither here nor there. Now, essentially, the odds of whoever's going to win is going to favor whoever is getting fired at, or who's firing the weapon at the person first. You know what I don't know. I can't come up with words. It's late. Anyways, point is, the person firing is always going to have the distinct advantage, whether suppression or not. That's just the way it works. However, if there isn't suppression, the person who's being fired at has a better chance, if they're skilled, to outgun the opponent. Now, things like Halo Reach comes to mind. Not Halo, but Halo in general. You know, the better player is not guaranteed to outgun the person who's shooting at him. But given that he is skilled enough, he can retaliate and most often beat the person who's shooting at him simply because he is better skilled at the game. Now, this is what bugs me the most, is that with the new suppression mechanic, it completely eliminates the chance of the higher skilled player winning a gunfight if he, is getting shot at. And, I don't know. I mean, some people have given the argument that it's more tactical or whatever, but there's not a whole lot of tactics involved in just, shooting at the enemy, pointing your gun at them and firing, and then giving them zero chance to fire back because they can't aim and their gun is recoiling way more than normal. So I honestly don't see the tactics involved in that. Sure, there's a little bit of team play, whereas, suppression's more important because it's got a lot more, it has a stronger effect, I should say. So, I don't know, it's just one thing that's bothering me, but not as much lately. Like, when I first started playing the patch, it was noticeable, but now I've sort of gotten used to it, but still, it's still prevalent, and it still gets me a little bit heated, so to say, when I'm playing, but it's not as, I've acclimated to it, really, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so now, the second big change that they made was to the guns. And here is where I have something positive to say. I absolutely love what they have done to the whole dynamic of weapons, of firearms in this game. It's a great sight to see almost no one using the USAS with frag rounds anymore. And the FAMAS is it's a lot more prevalent. I mean, I've seen a couple FAMAS users there, but almost zero USAS frag users. And this warms my heart because honestly, I hated those guns so much, because not only were they incredibly prevalent, but they were also very, very powerful, because they both could cross-map, and they also both exceeded and excelled in close quarters. So really, they didn't have a ton of weaknesses. I mean, the USAS could kill you potentially, and the FAMAS had a very fast fire rate, which led to a high amount of ammo depletion, and thus you got stuck with a long reload time. Now, those are some pretty big weaknesses, but it was not enough to deter people from actually using those guns. And some people would say abusing. I just say using because honestly, it's in the game. You're not really abusing anything when you're playing this game, except for maybe the other players. But so now that they've taken care of those two problem weapons, I'm having a lot less problems with people, with what guns they're using as opposed to their tactics. And before the patch, it was mostly their guns, and mostly it was the FAMAS, is what the big thing was. Because USAS frags, some people consider it overpowered. I thought it was pretty overpowered myself, but not to the point of being a FAMAS. I thought the FAMAS was the epitome of, OP-ness in Battlefield 3, as far as I'm concerned, because it had a huge fire rate, and with foregrip and suppressor, it was incredibly accurate to almost all, realistic assault rifle ranges, so it was a little bit ridiculous. But now that they've taken care of that with the whole there's a whole, a complete paradigm shift. I don't know if I'm using that word right, but there's been a complete shift in how the attachments work on each weapon. So now you don't see the foregrip suppressor all the time. There's a much greater variation in what attachments people are electing to use, which I think it's awesome. To be honest, I think it's great because it's not so mundane. Because honestly, the big thing to make your gun as best as possible was foregrip suppressor, because you had his across the board horizontal and vertical recoil reduction, while also having a stealth mechanic, or not a stealth mechanic, but a boost your stealth ability. So it's a pretty prevalent, and useful attachment combination. I don't blame anybody for using it because I use it a lot myself. So I can't really, call anybody out for that. But now that they've changed that, I think the dynamic of the guns is not only a lot more exciting and a lot more varied, but also it brings a new flavor to the game. Each gun isn't the carbon copy of each other, because before the patch I felt like a lot of the guns were very, very similar. AK, F2000, M16, the assault rifle, the automatic assault rifles, they all do the same exact damage. They vary in, obviously, visual, aesthetic, but it can be argued that they were essentially the same gun. Sure, they had different recoil, fire rate, and spread patterns, but when it came down to it, you could do equally as well with an AK or a F2000 as you could with an M16 or a FAMAS. They're fairly identical weapons in terms of ease of use. But now that they've changed that, all the guns they're very different, and honestly, I'm still getting used to them, this many days after the patch. I haven't really found an assault rifle that I'm really comfortable with yet, to be honest. I tried the M16 with a flash suppressor and, no barrel attachment. I've tried it with foregrip suppressor, foregrip flash suppressor. I've tried it with, a numerous amount of combinations of attachments, and I haven't really come to the conclusion. I haven't really found that sweet spot that, existed with the foregrip suppressor, which I think is actually pretty good. It really makes you think about what you're putting on your rifle. Because before you slap on foregrip suppressor and then you're good to go for any situation. Now with the whole changes to the attachments, there's different setups for different situations, which I think is great. If you want more accuracy, you're gonna have to give up your close quarters ability. But if you want close quarters ability, you're gonna have to give up your accuracy bonuses. So I think that was a really good decision on DICE, and I commend whoever made those weapon balance tweaks, because honestly, I'm really enjoying them. I think it was done incredibly well, and I am struggling to find fault with any part of that. So, big thumbs up. However, I have noticed this is probably either the Renta servers or the mic connection or something, but I've been having trouble with hit detection. I don't know if that's just me or if that's a trend that other people have been noticing, but I've noticed that I see a lot of my bullets go straight through people and then not doing anything. So that's kind of bothersome. So yeah, weapon changes, great. I'm liking them a lot. Now the third thing that I wanted to cover is the vehicle changes and how certain weapons interact with them. So, I really do not like what they've done with vehicles, to be honest. It's one of those things where they tweak it a little bit too hard. As with suppression, it's gone something really... I feel like they went overboard, to be honest, or not to be honest, but to put it in, just forget that. But yeah, I feel, because tanks, the main battle tanks, they are tin cans now, to be honest. God, I'm saying that way too much. I apologize. The tin cans are like... the tanks. The tanks are like tin cans now. A chopper can completely annihilate them in about a pass, one single pass. And this could have been the trend before the patch, if this pilot and gunner got every single rocket, every single round on target. But now doesn't even have to be possible. The amount of damage that the tanks take now is so incredibly high that uh, the first like half of volley of rockets from the gunner are pretty much a guaranteed disable, and then with the chopper gunner, if he gets all his hits on target to the side armor, he's probably going to get the kill and the destroy of the tank. And I cannot make myself like that one bit. I feel tanks have gotten severely undercut with this new patch. They don't feel as powerful, they don't feel as lumbering. Honestly, they feel like death traps because they're so vulnerable to not only to helicopters, but also to RPG fire and javelins. Javelins are a 2-hit kill on tanks now if you're not running reactive. And they were a 3-hit kill, I believe, before the patch. And I thought this was perfect. To be honest, I absolutely loved the vehicle play before the patch. Nothing was really, was the ultimate dominator of its, like air didn't completely dominate ground targets. Not completely. I mean, they did a lot of damage, but they didn't, destroy tanks in single passes regularly. It did happen, but not all the time. But now I've seen the case where if it's not a complete destroy, it's down to, single percentages or low teens percentages of health. And I can't make myself like that. This is one of those things I just will not be able to get used to. And choppers, with the new buff to the AA missiles behavior, oh god, choppers are ridiculous. They are extremely, extremely powerful against ground targets because they rip tanks to shreds. And they're also extremely effective against air targets because the AA missiles they do a shit ton of damage. I think they drop a plane, or not a plane, but a jet down to 19% health. Now, it was a one-shot disable, or, one volley of heat seekers before the patch, but you were knocked down to about 32, maybe 35% health. Now it's down to 19%, so you're pretty much screwed. You have a much greater chance of dying. And before the patch, you could dodge the missiles pretty easily. Now they made them ridiculously accurate. Again, it's taken away that part of the skill, where a skilled pilot could easily evade, not easily, but, with some decent flying, could evade the missiles, pretty handily. Whereas now it's very, very, very difficult to evade heat-seeker missiles. And maybe people like this, but I honestly don't see the need for it. I felt air vehicles and the Stinger/AA missiles were perfect. I thought they were great before because they weren't, the ultimate death tool of air vehicles. Air vehicles were, but now they're the sole thing that chooses whether, the chopper, who decides which chopper comes out on top if it's a chopper duel. It's based entirely on who can get their AA missiles out fast enough, which I do not like one bit. And so this is coming to close. Oh shit. Sorry about that, guys. I ran out of gameplay footage, so I had to grab some old footage from the vault. But like I was saying, choppers, they've become the ultimate death machines of death. They are able to very, very easily take out aircraft because the new AA missiles are incredibly powerful. They are able to destroy ground targets pretty easily. And that pretty much about covers there's air and ground targets, about it. They shred armor and they shred aircraft. So they've become extremely powerful. And I don't know, I just feel like there's a very big imbalance there. And I felt like this patch, it was one step forward and 2 steps back. Because honestly, I didn't like the suppression changes at all. Because first of all, I don't agree with suppression, but and another step back was the vehicle changes. Tanks feel like tin cans. Helicopters are incredibly, incredibly powerful. But at the same time, the weapon changes are fantastic. Now, some of you might say, oh, you don't like the vehicle changes, you go play TDM. Well, I don't play Battlefield to play Team Deathmatch. I play Battlefield to play Conquest. I like these big, epic battles with vehicles and helicopters and tanks and tons of guys running around blowing shit up and just, having these awesome, epic fights that no other game can really recreate. And so, playing Team Deathmatch isn't an option. I don't like the game type for this particular game, but And you know, for other games that might be an option, but I don't know. And while I got some footage left over, one more thing has been bugging me. Rented servers have, oh my god, every rented server I have joined has retarded amount of tickets. I joined a 1,000 ticket server on Karg Island, and good god, we got a 4 cap within the first 50 tickets, and what's left to do but, you know, sit at Delta and wait for them to come at you. And they're, besides being 4 cap, they were extremely passive opponents, so they only poke their heads out every now and then. They were more content to sit in their spawn than to actually push forward and try to reverse the game. Now, I have no problem, really, that much. It's not the fact that the game is really long. It's just that it really turns into an uncompetitive, spawn-trapping snooze fest. And with these new rented servers, I don't know what it is, but I've noticed a huge drop in the amount of competitive games. By competitive games, I mean games where, like, there's an actual decent, you know, fight over who's going to be the victor. It's not just like a steamroll, instant 4 cap, you know, almost. And so, between that and the huge amounts of tickets for the new rented servers, I am struggling to find fun, enjoyable games. And that also means that I'm not recording not even close to as much. For patch, I recorded, you know, 6 out of 10 games about on average, and now it's less than 1 out of 10 games. The footage, I recorded 2 games, full games, since the patch came out. That's it, and that's been what, a week, 2 weeks maybe? I don't know. But I don't know. It's hard to get really not only good to watch games, but enjoyable games, because the tickets, there's just so many of them. And also I've noticed that players, I don't know what it is, but games have not been competitive in the slightest. And I really wish I knew what it was so I could fix it. So, you know, with the whole new rented server thing, somebody might say, oh, well, why don't you just buy your own server? Well, honestly, I've tried that. I've gotten frustrated with the ridiculous amount of tickets, and I've tried to purchase my own server. But those things go out like hotcakes. It is like, they put some up actually today, which is the 10th of April. They put out some new servers, I heard, and I tried checking later that night, and not a single one was left over. I just want to rent one for one day, because that's all I can really that's all I really want to commit to right now. And there wasn't any left over. Even my friend tried buying one as well, and he couldn't find one. So renting a server isn't really an option until they add a lot of more servers. I mean, it's a little ridiculous that they don't have more servers. It's like, they don't want my money. Huh. EA doesn't want my money, who'd thunk it? Well, maybe it's because they don't have the ability to take my money, but anyways, so yeah, so really I guess there was 4 things with this whole patch that really changed the dynamic of Battlefield, between the weapon rebalancing, which is great, the suppression changes, which not a big fan of, the vehicle rebalancing, which again, not a big fan of, and the rented servers, again, not a big fan of. There wasn't a ton of really great things. Oh yeah, there was the whole MAV writing thing, which has pretty much been fixed, I think, which is great because it now makes people, you know, play the game more. But, you know, snipers will always be snipers, so you can't really fix that. But yeah, I've been droning on for 25-ish minutes. So I think that about sums it up. You know, I love the weapon changes. Do not like the suppression. Absolutely hate what they've done to the vehicles. And I've also not been enjoying the custom servers, because not only have I not been able to get one, but all the ones that I join are really not fun to play in. So those are my thoughts on the patch, guys. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments. I want to get some discussion back from you guys, alright? Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.